Hello
Hello
from
from
St.
St. Louis.
Louis. It's a new week, and we are making our way from the beautiful and quiet Pomme de Terre State Park in Hermitage, Missouri, to an RV park in Stanton, Missouri, about an hour southwest of St. Louis. We chose this area because it was close to the historic Route 66, as well as the famous Meramec Caverns, a top attraction on Missouri's Route 66. It is also about an hour drive from downtown St. Louis and the Gateway Arch. We stayed at Meramec Campground, an RV park and campground just off of I-44 in Stanton. This RV park had small sites but offered full hookups, coin laundry, showers, and had a store as well as a game room. It also had a pool, but it was closed for the season. There were many cabins available to rent, and they looked pretty cute from the outside. It was a quiet area, and it was very easy to jump on the interstate or the Route 66 historic byway. The first day we were in the area, we went to the historic downtown of Washington. This town sits on the Missouri River and has a nice riverfront trail, as well as some really interesting historic buildings. There is even an Amtrak station close to the river. We decided to eat dinner at Marquardt's Landing, a bar and grill that's inside of a large building that was once a tavern and hotel for railroad workers. Here we decided to try a staple St. Louis food, toasted raviolis. These raviolis are lightly battered and fried and are a perfect finger food appetizer. We also shared a ribeye steak sandwich with onion rings. Everything was very good here. For dessert, we walked through downtown Washington to Main Street Creamery, where we shared another St. Louis classic, gooey butter cake, as well as a Nutty Buddy shake to go. The next day, we decided to take a drive along the Route 66 historic byway. We drove through the towns of Sullivan, Bourbon, and Cuba. Along the way, we saw remnants of the past, abandoned motels, former restaurants turned into private residences, and driveways and curbs that were once the entrance to a business on Route 66 but are no longer there. We did also see some motels that were still open or being renovated. The Wagon Wheel Motel outside of Cuba was one of them. The Shamrock Court was looking good too. Cuba, Missouri was an interesting town because it is known as the Mural City. There are so many murals on almost every corner of this town. Even some of the electrical boxes were painted. It was really cool to drive through town and see some of the paintings. On our way back towards the campground, we stopped at Meramec State Park to check out the sunset. The next day after work, we headed the other direction on the Route 66 historic byway. We saw some cute buildings and an old motel sign now sitting at a car wash. This big Garden Way Motel sign was pretty cool, but it looks like they tore down the empty motel in 2023. We drove to Pacific, Missouri, where we stopped at this cool museum that is decorated like an old gas station. Unfortunately, they weren't open. We then drove to the top of a bluff and checked out the view at this little park. On the way back, we stopped in Sullivan to eat dinner at Rich's Famous Burgers. Here we had the Big Cheesy, which was a bacon cheeseburger on Texas toast with deep fried jalapeno mac and cheese bites and barbecue sauce. We also had their fried catfish sandwich with garlic cheese curds. We also had to share a slice of ooey gooey butter cake since we were in the St. Louis area. Seriously, this dessert is wonderful. The next day we visited Meramec State Park, which sits on the Meramec River. We hiked the Natural Wonders Trail, which is a 1.3-mile loop that passes a creek, a rock glade, and a cave. It was a nice, fairly easy trail with a lot to see. Afterwards, we wanted to hike the Old Hamilton Ironworks Trail. This ended up being a 4.5-mile drive from the main part of the state park. It's a short trail that takes you around the ruins of a 19th century blast furnace that operated 24/7, 365. It was pretty cool. After work on Friday, we drove down the road to Meramec Caverns, which is the largest cave west of the Mississippi River, and also known as Jesse James's Hideout. They are open daily and have cave tours that depart every 20 to 30 minutes. The tour takes you through the cave and gives you a history of the cave and what it's been used for, as well as information on the different formations and life forms inside the cave. The tour is lighted and there are walkways and steps that take you through the different rooms of the cave. There is even a light show and a patriotic video shown at the end in the theater room. All in all, it was a very interesting tour and the biggest cave either of us has ever seen. We very much enjoyed checking it out. On Saturday, we drove to the big city, St. Louis. First, we crossed the Eads Bridge into East St. Louis, Illinois, where there is an observation deck overlooking the Mississippi River and the Gateway Arch. It is a free park with a great view, but just be aware that there is a lot of industry next door since it is right on the river. After taking some pictures from across the mighty Mississippi, we headed back over the river into St. Louis. We found a place to park and walked over to the Gateway Arch National Park. Part of the park includes the old courthouse, which is where the Dred Scott trial was held. Unfortunately, we could not visit the courthouse because it is temporarily closed for renovations. So we continued over to the Gateway Arch Visitor Center. Here you can buy a ticket and hop on a 5-person elevator that takes you to the top of the arch, where there is an observation area with views of the Mississippi River and the city of St. Louis. We opted out of the tram ride to the top and instead checked out the free museum underneath the arch. This museum was excellent and had a lot of information about westward expansion, the history of the St. Louis area, and how the arch was built. It was very busy on a Saturday morning, but it was definitely worth a visit. After checking out the museum, we walked around outside and checked out the arch from close up. It stands over 600 feet tall and truly is an architectural feat and a thing of beauty. Lunchtime rolled around, so we decided to head a little out of town to a restaurant that was featured on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Highway 61 Roadhouse is nowhere near Highway 61, but has the Blues Highway as its theme anyway. They offer Cajun and Creole food as well as barbecue. We split the Triple D platter, which includes a sample of 3 foods that were featured on the show. This included Cajun pot stickers, barbecue spaghetti, and red beans and rice. The Cajun pot stickers were spicy but good, and we really enjoyed the red beans and rice. We also split the barbecue sampler, which came with smoked chicken, pulled pork, and St. Louis style ribs. We got the mac and cheese as a side, and it was absolutely delicious. The meat was covered in a pretty good barbecue sauce, and the chicken was very good. After lunch, we went to Forest Park, which is an enormous city park that includes trails, a lake and water basin, golf courses, and other sports, as well as a free zoo and free art and history museums. You could easily spend all day in this park. We walked around the basin and admired the neat art museum on top of the hill overlooking the basin. We eventually made it to the St. Louis Zoo, where we saw all kinds of animals, including a red panda, camels, zebras, and giraffes. It was a lot of fun. We were tired after all that walking around the Gateway Arch and Forest Park, so after we drove back to our camper, we decided to order a St. Louis style pizza from Emo's, which we had seen several signs for in the area. St. Louis style pizza has a cracker thin crust and uses a processed cheese called Provel, which some people find too creamy and off-putting. We ordered a sausage and pepperoni pizza and some cheese bread, and we did not mind the Provel at all. It was a pretty good pizza. We loved our time here in Stanton, Missouri. We really enjoyed being able to drive the Route 66 historic byway and seeing cool old buildings and signs. And of course visiting Meramec Caverns. We also loved a lot of the food the St. Louis area has to offer, including gooey butter cake, which we will have to start making when we get back home because it is so good. Checking out the Gateway Arch was fun, and we got to mark off a national park on our trip. Overall, this was a very interesting and fun area with a lot to explore, and we would come back again. Hope you enjoyed.